In the attic, Xia Ning Chang was concentrating on alchemy, and Yang Kai was planning how to get those Void King-grade medicinal materials from Chi Yue's warehouse. After much deliberation, there is only one way. Use stone puppets. The stone puppet can move silently in the earth, and because it is a very special creature, it is extremely difficult for people to detect the fluctuation of life. When he was a guest at the Shadowed Star Colored Glass Sect, Yang Kai used stone puppets to steal a large amount of 1,000 imaginary colored glass from Colored Glass Sect, which became the main material for building the Void King-grade battleship. But this time is a little different from the situation back then. Although 1,000 imaginary colored glass mountain is tightly guarded by colored glass, there is still an opportunity to take advantage of it. The powerhouse of Colored Glass Sect never thought that there would be creatures in this world that could steal 1,000 imaginary colored glass under their noses. As for Chi Yue's warehouse, the tightness of defense is probably not comparable to Colored Glass Mountain. Although the stone puppet is useful, it is not very intelligent, and if it is rushed out, it is very likely to startle the snake. He can only do it himself. Thinking of this, Yang Kai no longer hesitated, stretched out his hand, and a golden stone puppet appeared in front of him. This stone puppet is considered to be the only one of its kind, but when it was born, due to various reasons, its divine soul was incomplete, making it the same as a dead thing because of its low intelligence. It happened to be used by Yang Kai as embodiment. It also absorbed a lot of pure golden blood from Yang Kai, so its color appeared pale gold. Looking at the golden stone puppet in front of him, Yang Kai nodded lightly, and the growing wisp of spirit in the consciousness he shot out and poured into the golden stone puppet. In the next moment, the sluggish eyes of the golden stone puppet recovered a little, and seemed to become more flexible. Yang Kai closed his eyes, his expression moved slightly. No matter how many times he has experienced such things, he still feels magical, injecting his wisp of spirit into the golden stone puppet body, making the golden stone puppet his embodiment. Yang Kai felt as if he was divided in two at this moment. Not only can he feel all the emotional fluctuations and feelings of his own body, but he can also have a panoramic view of what the golden stone puppet sees and hears. This is a very strange, unexplainable feeling. He didn't rush to act, but tried to control the movement of the stone puppet with his wisp of spirit. After getting acquainted with his peculiar body, his figure flickered. Suddenly escaped into the ground. The solid earth is nothing to the stone puppet. Its peculiar body can perfectly integrate itself into it, and it can travel unimpeded below, just like a fish swimming in the water. No one noticed in the palace. Regarding the location of the warehouse, Yang Kai also asked Shan Qingluo to find out. So he didn't need to look for anything. He checked the direction and went straight to the warehouse. Estimating the distance and location, it didn't take long before the stone puppet came to the bottom of the warehouse. Yang Kai quietly released his spiritual mind and spied upwards. Unsurprisingly, even in the deep underground of the warehouse, it seemed that there was also a restriction. When his embodiment's spiritual mind protruded, he soon encountered an invisible resistance and blocked him in front. The invisible resistance didn't seem to be very strong, and Yang Kai moved slightly, increasing the power of divine consciousness, condensing the power of divine consciousness into one, and bombarding the void. In all fairness, this was just a test, and Yang Kai also tried his best to control his power to the smallest range. He didn't dare to be too presumptuous. He thought such a slight test would not attract anyone's attention. But as soon as his divine consciousness touched that resistance, a terrifying aura suddenly diffused from a certain part of the palace. The strength of that aura made everyone tremble. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of invisible eyes in the void. Looking down at the entire palace, observing everyone's movements, no one dared to act rashly under the gaze of these eyes. The aura is like ripples. Soon it swept through the entire palace and then disappeared. Many people fell to the ground awkwardly, sweating on their foreheads. Even the strong man of Void Return stage had weak hands and feet at the moment, and his whole body was weak. What is the Lord looking for? I don't know. Did someone do something to anger her in the palace? Everyone talked a lot, puzzled. Everyone knew that the powerful aura belonged to Lord Chi Yue, and only she was the one who could silence the entire palace in a single thought. Yang Kai was also taken aback. He didn't expect Chi Yue's reaction to be so fast. If it weren't for the Stone Puppet Clan's special physique and could perfectly integrate with the surrounding land, the embodiment would definitely be exposed. After such a disturbance, he didn't dare to do anything to the warehouse anymore, and quickly controlled the embodiment to retreat quickly. In Chi Yue's bedroom, she frowned slightly, her face was suspicious, and she murmured, "Weird, the restriction on the storeroom has been touched, so why didn't I find it?" She also didn't understand. No one can be presumptuous on her territory, and no one can hide from her snooping. She thought that the treasury's restrictions was not maintained for a long time, and something went wrong that caused the abnormality just now. At this point, she didn't have the idea of continuing to investigate. Instead, she showed an interesting smile and whispered softly, "Yu Shang is a lot smarter this time. He knows how to kill people with a knife. This palace master wants to see how capable you human race are." With that said, she quietly cast her spiritual mind towards the attic where Xia Ning Chang was, observing the movement there. In the attic, Yang Kai took the golden stone puppet back into the black book space, and suddenly he looked at a place in the void, frowning. At this moment, he actually felt a sense of being spied on, but when he carefully investigated with his spiritual mind, he found nothing. Could it be that what happened just now was exposed, causing Chi Yue to be monitoring him? Yang Kai's face turned black. Is this little kid actually aware of it?" Chi Yue said in surprise. With her strong cultivation level of the second-order Void King realm, it is easy to watch a second-order Void return stage without being noticed, but Yang Kai's glance at the Void just now clearly shows that he has noticed her prying eyes. But it was limited to this, he couldn't really detect her spiritual mind. He should just have a doubt now. Chi Yue saw this from Yang Kai's expression. "This is interesting." Chi Yue suddenly became interested. Yang Kai frowned and sat in place, secretly feeling tricky. After a while, his expression became calm. Pretending that nothing happened, closed his eyes and adjust his aura. At this moment, the voice of speaking suddenly came from outside. "Sorry, two young masters, you can't go in. This is the place where Master Xia is refining alchemy. Palace Lord has an order. During the period of Master Xia doing alchemy, no one can disturb." Yang Kai's expression shifted, and he turned his ears to the sound, and found that the speaker should be the green-clothed maid who had given Xia Ning Chang medicinal materials before. At this moment, she seemed to be preventing someone from breaking into the attic. This young master knows that this is where Master Xia refines alchemy. That's why he came here. If not, you think Master Xia will come here? Get out of the way, I'll talk to that Master Xia about something. A wild voice sounded. Listening, it looks very strange. The two young master, please be respectful. Palace Lord has already issued a strict order, and please don't make the servant embarrassed by the two young master. The servant girl in green begged, and while saying Chi Yue's name. Go away. The master of the violent voice seemed to be annoyed. Don't take Senior Chi Yue to suppress this young master. This young master will explain it. What do you think you are daring to block this young master way? Little girl, let's get out of the way. This young master came with Brother Shui Lian this time to invite Master Xia to refine the pill. It's not about treating her badly. Brother Shui Lian has a bad temper. If there is something offended, this young master apologized to you on his behalf. Another voice sounded. Yang Kai suddenly sneered. The owner of this voice was the evil-eyes crazy young master Mi Tian. Since entering the palace, Yang Kai hasn't seen him again, but someone who is proud and arrogant like him will definitely not give up about Shining Moon City. Shan Qingluo had also reminded him to be careful before to prevent him from taking revenge. This time when he came over, some of the visitors were unkind. But who is the other one? Hearing Mi Tian calling him Shui Lian, it seems that his status is not low. Otherwise, how can he be called brother by Mi Tian? Yang Kai was curious. Master Xia pill refining? The green-clothed servant girl froze for a moment and quickly reacted, and said quickly, no, Master Xia is a talent that the palace lord is optimistic about. Without the lord's order, she can't make alchemy for others. No? The monster race powerhouse called Shui Lian sneered, what's wrong? A small human servant, this young master asked her to make alchemy, so what if she is looking up and raising her, how can she not make alchemy? If she dare not, this young master immediately called her a dead end. The handmaid in green was so scared that her face turned pale. Although she was afraid of the ferocity of this powerful monster race called Shui Lian, she still stood firmly in front of him and prevented him from breaking into the attic. Give you 3 breaths time. If you don't give way, get ready to die. As the young master killing a little maid, presumably senior Chi Yue will not blame, you think clearly. Shui Lian looked coldly. The handmaid in green clothes had a fierce look and a violent expression. Girl, get out of the way, you're a thin-skinned and tender body, it won't look good if you break it. Mi Tian still smiled gently, persuading the green-clothed maidservant and sent out the evil rays of light in her eyes. As soon as she made contact with his eyes, the eyes of the servant girl in green became a little dull and blurred, and the struggling expression on her face gradually became docile, flew into a blush, and gently nodded shyly, and walked away from the road. With a cold snort, Shui Lian stretched out his hand to move the green-clothed maid to a farther position, took a big step, and walked straight towards the attic. Mi Tian followed behind him with a big smile. Just when the two were less than 10 feet away from the attic, the door of the attic suddenly opened with a creak. Yang Kai walked out from the inside, closed the door of the attic lightly, and turned around, his indifferent gaze toward Mi Tian and Shui Lian. Shui Lian and Mi Tian stopped at the same time. The former looked at Yang Kai up and down, and curled his lips in disdain. The latter's eyes narrowed, and a look of hatred and jealousy appeared in the evil eyes. He would never forget that in Scarlet Moon City, Yang Kai's terrifying performance was an opponent that he could face. To be continued.